Alright guys, let's get into it. So I have here a brand new project. It's finished building and we're in the main activity. So the very first thing we'll do in this application is we'll set up our backend, which, as you know, is Firebase. So to use Firebase, the first thing we need to do is we need to log into our Gmail account through Android Studio. In the upper right corner, you'll notice that there is an account icon. Mine is blue, but yours may be gray if you haven't logged in. If you click that, you can go ahead and log into your account. So there'll be an option to log in. I have already done so I can even add an account if I want to, but there's no need for that. So go ahead and do that. It'll open up a browser and you'll be able to log in with your Gmail account and password. Once you've done that, we will then add Firebase to our project. So to do that, you come to Tools and you select Firebase. This opens up the Firebase assistant here on the right, and this is a good time to give you just a very brief overview of what Firebase is. I have a more thorough tutorial on Firebase authentication particularly, and you're welcome to go take a look at that. It'll give you perhaps a more thorough explanation, but really briefly, Firebase is a platform that offers the various components that make up a backend in one platform. So, as you can see in this list that has shown up when the assistant opened, all of these items are things that you would have in a backend, things that you may have in a backend. You're able with Firebase to choose whichever you need for your project, leaving the others that are unnecessary, and you can bypass the process of having to build your own authentication, for example, or your own database or your own storage. Firebase has already done it for you, so you can skip that step and focus on the code. Okay, so to begin with, we want to do authentication. So our assistant is opened up. Here's authentication. I'm going to collapse that and I'll select email and password authentication. This opens up another menu, and within it we have a number of steps that we can follow to add authentication to our project. So step 1, connect to Firebase, and I'll go ahead and do that. And this is what we get. So it's brought us a console that says connect to Firebase, and we can select one of two options. One, we can create a new Firebase project, or we can choose an existing Firebase project that we already have on our console. So if this is your first one, which I expect it is, go ahead and select create new Firebase project and select your region, which will be, for me, Kenya. Here we are. However, I already had a project created, so I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'll select this picture diary and connect to Firebase. And once that's done, you will see that the button has changed to some green text that says connected. So that's step 1 done, and we can move on to step 2. Next step is to add Firebase authentication. So the first step was just to simply connect to Firebase itself. Now we have to choose the actual module of Firebase that we want, which in this case is authentication. So I'll click that button, and in the dialog that opens, I will click accept changes. As this is happening, let's take a look at the Firebase console itself. So the part that's happening on the actual browser, the actual backend that we can take a look at. Let's go see what that looks like. So in my browser, I have gone to firebase.google.com, and I'm going to sign in with the same account that I created I connected my project to. Once you sign in, you'll see an option in the top right that says go to console, so I'll select that. And here is my Firebase console, the dashboard in any case. And as you can see, picture diary is at the top, or rather the first project that's available. You'll also have other projects that you may have worked on, and you'll have the option to manually create a project in the console itself. So I'm going to select Picture Diary so we can take a look. And now here's the dashboard for the application itself, for Picture Diary itself. As you can see on the left side, the same list that we saw in Android Studio is also here. So these are all the components that we can work with in our application. Let's select Authentication. That's what we're working with right now. And here's what we will do. So as I said, I had already created this. So you may have something different in yours, but in any case, I still do not have any users. And I'd like you to go to Sign In method. The Sign In method tab shows you all the different ways that Firebase allows you to sign in, or rather will allow your users to sign into your app. They can use their phone number, their Google account. They can use Facebook and Twitter, even GitHub. For now, we'll focus on email and password. So whichever email they want to use, they can use that one. What you have to do is select this Edit button and go ahead and select, change the state to enabled using this switch. I've already done so, so I'll just cancel. And once you do that, we can go back to our Android Studio. And as you can see, step 2 has been successful. It's turned to the green text with the tick. And we can even check. We can see in our Gradle-scripts that in our dependencies, we got the Firebase auth dependency. So that's actually what it did. It simply added this dependency and synced the project. All right, so now we go to step 3, and now we can actually start writing code. We have connected to Firebase and we've added the authentication dependency. So let's close others and let's actually use it. The guys who made Firebase were kind enough to give us some sample code right in the steps that will tell us how to actually go about using the Firebase authentication. So you're welcome to follow along with this example, but I'd prefer it if we type so that we can learn exactly what's going on. So the first thing I'll do, this is just a practice of my own. I'll add a context variable. So context, and then I'll say context is equal to this. And now we can add our authentication, so Firebase auth, our Firebase auth object, and we initialize it right under there by saying auth is equal to Firebase auth.getInstance. Simple as that, just as they've done in these steps. So the Firebase auth class contains all the tools and all the methods that we need to deal with authentication using Firebase, the Firebase implementation. All right, so we've declared the instance and we have initialized the Firebase auth. Now the next thing is to see whether the user is actually signed in. So let me write the code and I will explain as we go along. First of all, we need to override our onStart. So simply start writing onStart and select it from the list. So there it is. And within it, we can say check auth. This is a method I have not created, so I will get an error, no problem. Check auth. And by clicking on the method and then selecting this red light bulb, I can get Android Studio to make that method for me, like so. So in this method, as the name implies, we'll actually check whether the person is logged in or not. But first, why are we doing it in onStart? The onCreate method runs whenever the activity is created for the first time. So if the app wasn't running, then you opened it, it goes to main activity, it runs on create. So this is a good place to initialize things like our context and our authentication, our Firebase auth object. But we want to check whether the user is logged in every time this activity shows up. So this is the first activity of the screen where they'll actually be making their diary entries. And every time it shows up, regardless of whether it's been created or if it's just starting, we want to check that auth. So for example, if they left the activity, if they went to the home screen and they came back, we'll check their auth. that wouldn't happen because the activity hasn't been created, it was just in the background. But they've come back, we want to check their auth. If they go to a different screen, maybe the settings screen in the app, and they come back, again, we want to check their auth. So that's why we put it in the on start. It's more thorough, so to speak. Okay. Now let's work on our check auth, and again, we can just follow this. Well, sort of, not entirely. First, we'll create a Firebase user. This is another object, another class from Firebase, and we can follow their naming convention and call it current user. And this is equal to our auth.getCurrentUser. So this object, current user, now holds the current user that's logged in. So if there is somebody logged in, it will hold those details. But if there is not somebody logged in, the object will be null. So if someone is logged in, this actually has data. If not, it's null. So we can do a simple if statement. If current user is null, then we know that user is not logged in. And if they're not logged in, we can kick them to the login screen. So we can say intent is equals to new intent. And in here, it's very simple. You say main activity.this, which is where we are. It's our context, and we say where we want to go, which is to the login activity dot class. Let's collapse this and make this a bit smaller. And then we simply say start activity, and we throw in that intent. So, as I said, this is the context, but my practice is to always use a variable, and the variable is created up here. So instead of main activity to this, I will simply say context. This makes our code more brief because you will be using context for very many things. So instead of writing activity.this, whichever activity it is, .this, it's better to just put a variable. So let us now create this login activity and actually remove this error. So over to file, right click our package, new activity, empty activity, and we change this to login. Alright, there it is. And something else I will do even before we continue, I'll say new activity, empty activity, and immediately just create register. So let's do that. Alright, now that that's done, let's go over to the login activity and to the activity login XML. So we'll go ahead and design this screen. As you can see, I've already changed my constraint layout to a linear layout. Again, I always find it easier to work with. Also, in my resources folder, in values and colors, I've changed the default colors to other colors that I would like to work with. But again, as I always stress, this is totally up to you. Choose whatever looks good. Design is always subjective. Alright, then back to activity login. So what do we need in a login screen? Well, it's very simple. We just need two pieces of information, the email and the password. And then we need the button to sign in and the button to go to the register screen if they haven't done that. So that's all we will put as far as widgets that will be interactive with are concerned. And to begin with, at the very top, we can have a text view. So let's put wrap content and wrap content. Close that, and the text will be sign in. right, text size, let's put that as 35 to begin with. We'll see if we need to change it. And color will be white, so hash and yes. Okay, so the reason it's white is because I'm going to also change some of the attributes in the linear layout, starting with the background, which will be color primary there, and then we'll put some padding, 20 dp, and then we'll center everything, so gravity, not to be confused with layout gravity. We want the second one that just says gravity, and we want center horizontal. Okay. Alright, let's actually make this a little larger, 40 dp. Yes, I think that looks a bit better. Good. Next thing, our edit text. Wrap content, match parent for the, oh sorry, done that the wrong way around. Match parent for the width. And then let's close it. By the way, to close it, I'm just putting the slash, like so. I just put this first character and the pointy bracket comes on its own. Okay. Next, we need an ID, and the ID will be email. Hint will be email, and hint color, or text color hint rather, will be white. So hash ff. Okay, and I can see that it's coming beside my sign in, which means the orientation is horizontal. Let's change that by going to our linear layout and saying orientation to vertical. There, that's better. Right. Next thing I want to do is to add an image to the side of the email, an account icon image, and also to make it rounded. So we'll start with making it rounded. To give rounded edges, we actually put a background, like so. So we can start typing background, and you can say at drawable. So I've selected IC Launcher foreground, but I'm getting rid of that, and I'm putting input underscore BG. So it'll look for an input BG and put that as the background. Of course, it'll give me an error. I haven't created that yet. Let's do that right now. So we go to drawable, right click, and say new drawable resource file. And we call this, as we wrote, input BG. And say OK. By default, we get a selector, but I actually want a shape. And as one of the attributes, I'll actually select the shape, and it is a rectangle. Alright, so let's give this a background color. So we start by saying solid. That's how you give background colors in these XML shapes. And the color will be color primary. Next thing we want is a stroke. So a stroke is an outline, a little border that we can see. We'll close that. First you have to give it a width. Whoops. Okay, I can start with the color, no problem. So hash FFF, that's white. And then give it a width, and the width will just be 1 dp. We don't want it to be too thick. There's our stroke. Next thing we want is padding. and we want padding on the top 0 dp, on the bottom 0 dp or 10 dp, on the left 10 dp, and on the right 0 dp. It may have just put these two 0 dps as the default, but always good to be thorough. Okay, so there's our padding, and then the final thing is now to actually do the rounded effect, and for that we need corners. So I'll actually put it as the second one. So corners, and radius will be 25 dp, and then I close it, and you can see what it does. It shaves off a bit of the corner, and of course you can make it more exaggerated by putting a higher amount, or you can make it just slightly by putting a lesser amount, and so on and so forth. So 25 dp is what I'll use. Feel free to choose your own, and that's it. That's our input bg.xml. So we can go back to activity login, and now the error goes, and as you can see, there it is. Let me zoom in a bit. There's our email. Okay, so next thing I want to do is to space it away. It seems it's hugging the sign in, so let's give it some space, and I'll do that with not padding. Margin top will be 40 dp. There we go, that's better. And then that image I told you about, so first of all I need to copy in my images to my drawable file. I already have them copied, so I'll just right click on drawable and click paste and say okay. There they are. So here's my lock icon. It's faint because it's white, but there it is. There's the lock. And here's my person icon. It's an account icon. That's it. So I'll link both of these below so that you guys can use them. Also, if you have other ones that you prefer to use, you're welcome to do that. And I can go back to my activity login, and to use it you simply say drawable left, so that it's on the left side, and you select a drawable person icon, and there it is. And now we need to make it, we need to give it some space from the word email, so we say drawable padding, and we put 10 dp. Should be good. There, that looks neat. And then finally we need to put some space around the border and both of these items, so that it's not hugging that either. So for that, it's simply padding, and let's start with 5 dp. See how that looks. Okay, let's add a bit more. Let's say 15 dp. That's a bit too wide. Let's lower that. 12 looks good to me. All right, that's our email. I can now just copy the entire thing and paste it, and this can be our password. I'll change the ID, I'll change the hint to password, I'll change margin top to 20 dp. It can be close to the email. The drawable will now be the lock icon. There it is. What else? That's it. One final attribute I'll add that the email did not have is input type. If it's a password, it must always be text password, so that you're not actually seeing what the person is typing. Good. Next thing. Those are both our input fields. Now we need our buttons. So very quickly, button layout width, I'd like to put it as 200 dp, and height can be wrap content. Close that. Start with the ID, and the ID is login. Oh no. Let's try that again. ID, you have to put this little at plus ID, so that it goes into the ID file, so that it's added to the ID files where all the IDs are kept. Okay, text, and the text will be sign in, margin top. Again, I'll put this as 40 dp, so the groups of widgets have their spaces. This pair has their good space from the sign in, and this pair that I'm about to create has a good spacing from the input fields. Okay, next, text color will be white, and then once again we want our rounded corners. So first let's try it with the one we've already created. Background and a drawable input bg. Okay, that's how it looks. Not too bad, but the problem with this is it's a bit much if you just keep on using the same one. You won't know whether this is another input field or whether it's a button. So we can still use it, but we'll change it a bit. So we come to the input bg, right click, copy, right click, drawable, paste. It'll ask us to change the name, so we can say button bg. And all we'll change is we'll get rid of, and then also we can change this to color primary dark. Let's take a look. So we'll change this from input to button bg. Okay, not bad. Let's zoom in a bit, take a closer look. Yeah, that's not bad. This spacing doesn't look good on the button, so we can remove that. So bottom will be 0 dp. Come back. Yes, now it's properly centered. That's good. Okay, and yeah, that really is it. We can leave the button at that. So once again, same exact thing. We copy this and we paste it. Change it from login to register. Change the sign in to create account. And we will keep the same button bg, but let's have a bit of a change. So the text color can be primary dark, and then the background will still keep button bg, but we'll change the background tint to white. Just to give it a bit of a change, make it look a little nicer. Oh, and of course, margin top will be 20. Oh, I changed the wrong one. I changed the edit text, go down, margin top, yes, here we are, 20. All right. Very good. So this is a good looking design. Perhaps, no, I don't want to dwell too much on the look of it. I'm satisfied with how it looks. Feel free to add or remove in yours, but we can leave it at that. Now, one final thing I'll do, and then we can close this video and continue the next one, is we'll connect our widgets to our Java code. So in our login activity, let's start with context. Context is equals to this, and then we only have 4 widgets to connect. So edit text, email and password, and button. Login, register, and then I'll only write the code once for email. Is equal to find me by ID, r.id.email, and then I'll hold Control and D to duplicate the line. So like so. This becomes password. This becomes password as well. This becomes login, so does this, and finally register, and register. Okay, and then we can say login.set on click listener, new on click listener. So always just start typing new on click listener, then select the first one. Then I'll highlight this entire thing and say Control hold down Control and D, that I have 2 of them, and change this one to register. Simple as that. That's enough. We can leave it at that. In the next video, we can actually start putting some functionality in this set on click listeners, that is. All right, let's continue in the next one.